Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, it is I am the one and only Ray the Flying Squirrel here, and I am back for the likes of the Maxi Toys videos, as you probably expect at this point in time. So ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for some more of Let's Play of Super Mario RPG Legend of the Seven Stars for the Super Nintendo / Super Famicom versions, as we're going to be currently playing through right now, while the Nintendo Switch remake, it should be on its way. So, last time, we've essentially managed able to continue exploring the forms of Barrel Volcano by bumping into the forms of the Axum Rangers, and while we somehow managed able to defeat the Axum Rangers, we did somehow receive the 6th star piece, which as you can see, we've now actually got ourselves the red star piece. So, yeah, it looks like we only got one more star piece left until the game is pretty much completed during that time. So, yeah, and also at the same time, we also did manage able to show off some bit of extras here and there. So yeah, there's not much right to home about when it comes to able to showing you guys some little brief extras here and there every once in a while, just before we go on to the forms of the final frontier, which is of course Bowser's Castle, or should I say Bowser's Keep of all things. So today, for this video, is about the fact that we'll show off the forms of the last few extras, and relatively speaking, later on for this particular portion of this recording session, that's, well, suffice to say, it's about time we can finally dive right back into the forms of Bowser's Keep ever since the beginning portion of the game, except now we do have a partner system, to be more specifically with the 3 character partners during the forms of the actual battles coming up, and especially noticeable, we are able to stumble across into ourselves some very tougher enemies and also tougher bosses. So even then though, yeah, still, I can't even believe by saying this is about the fact that we're getting very, very close at the end of the game. So, anywho though, so yeah, a few things I want to explain for this point today, and that's what appears to be, of course, that today's date, of course, is the 27th of August today, in some cases in 2023 today. Naturally speaking though, not long now, until we've almost approaching on to September, so meaning about the fact that we've only got about roughly 5 days to go until we move on to September, in some cases though, the 9th month, in journey forms of 2023 anyway. And on top of all that stuff though, is about the fact that there are quite a few mentions I want able to briefly mention about something, and that is about the fact that something tells me is about the fact that the new Barbie movie is getting very, very close to the #1 spot in journey forms of the actual highest grossing films in journey forms of in 2023. So yeah, that comes off as pretty shocking as far as I'm concerned, because I almost assume that the Mario movie will pretty much dominate it for its box office during that specific time. But as it turns out, about the fact that recently is about the fact that Barbie is pretty much going to be taking all over the actual, like, you know, highest grossing films for its box office department for the sake of the films of this year so far. Well, there's always a next time when it comes to the films of the sequel might potentially be happening for the Mario movie as it is. So either way though, I guess that's a bit of a shocker as far as I'm aware. So in addition to that, about the fact that yes, I finally managed able to unlock myself Panda Amy, and my god, I'm just not a big fan of the forms of the unlocking character stuff from the card system. Like, I will have to admit it though right away, I'm probably not going to touch upon Sonic Dash for a while again, because I just think that the actual unlockable system for characters every now and then, it just feels a bit kind of not worth it in my opinion, or potentially speaking I was about the fact that it just feels kind of off to me, especially concerning about that particular point that, I mean, the newest update, or the current update we're onto right now in Sonic Dash is okay, but it's just, I swear, it's just the actual unlocking characters with the actual card collectibles, it just doesn't feel right to me. So, because like I said before, it can be sometimes feels a bit time consuming whenever you do manage to able to stumble across into yourselves some very, very, very identical, character cards here and there for certain characters you do technically already unlocked from the likes of in the previous patch updates here and there in the past few years. Like, to be more specifically, since I actually had Sonic Dash since in 2014, so that might be the reason for that, I guess. So So as you can see, we're going back into the forms of Booster Hill, and the reason being for this is because there was that little mini game we can able to actually play around with, and that's what appears to be about the fact that luckily it's entirely optional, but regardless of everything else though, all it gets for you is just about the fact that, as you can see, we have to keep on collecting those beetles, as you can see, while at the same time we still need to able to try and able to dodge not only Sniffits, but also with the forms of the barrels as well. You know, just like the forms of how he does it whenever we do manage to catch up on, you know, Princess Toadstool from Booster, but except now we do need to able to catch these, you know, the actual beetles and stuff like that. However, there are some 3 different types of beetles as far as I'm aware, like, despite the fact that it's been about quite a few hours since I actually have last played this game for sure. But I do know for certain for one thing, if you dare catch the gold beetle, I'm pretty sure about the fact that it gives you a special reward, which I don't suppose I can probably able to actually accept to able to try to able to make it for this point, because sometimes I'm not very great on timing jumps and what have you, especially concerning about the specific point that since that we've almost approaching on towards the end game right now, so I would expect about the fact that I don't know if I can able to actually catch the insane amounts of those beetles from now on. So, but then again though, it's just one of those bragging rights things, I guess, especially concerning about that you no longer have yourselves to keep on farming some more of those flower points, potentially speaking. So even then though, I don't know about you, but I don't know exactly if I was able to actually reach myself the maximum of 99 flower points anytime soon, but I'm also able to try to figure something out on my own time for a bit. If not, well, I suppose I'm also able to have to stick around for it, I guess, for that current amount I actually got. So, anyway though, there's another thing I want to mention about, and that's what appears to be about the fact that recently, that Pokemon Sleep, you know, with that new particular app game that has already been released during that specific time, well, as a result, about the fact that Pokemon Sleep has surpasses 10 million downloads and grants users for a special prize, or special gift, to be more specific. So, yeah, that seems kind of interesting, to say the least, but aside from all that stuff, though, despite the fact that I still haven't got that particular game for myself, mainly because it's not my cup of tea, I must be honest here. So, although it can be interesting for some players out there, but unfortunately, though, it's not my kind of thing, so I'm biased, I guess. So anyways, before we get on to the forms of the final area in the game, let me show you guys the forms of Great Guys Casino, where basically though is about the fact that we can able to play 3 different games in here. There's the forms of the slot machine, which is self-explanatory, and also we got ourselves the actual, like, a poker game or something like that. And finally, there's the forms of look away kind of syndrome or something like that, which you'll see why as soon as we're able to actually show no specific games in action and during the forms of the actual casino itself. So yeah, there's not much else to see around here, although it will be good for you if you try to keep on grinding for more frog coins as far as I'm concerned, but I'm probably not going to spend my time in here too much, although relatively speaking though, it does feel a little bit interesting to be able to actually experience the actual casino gambling based segments from time to time. So I'm pretty sure it's possible on the Switch remake might be able to actually include this, despite the fact that it might actually involve around gambling or anything else to be more specific, although mind you, it has been a very long while since we've last heard about the forms of the Switch remake of Super Mario RPG since in during the forms of in June. So I can't even believe it's been about roughly 2 months ago since that particular amazing Nintendo Direct during the forms of this year so far, which it was pretty expected, especially concerning that we've now actually got some more Mario games coming up in the future for presumably just trying to able to make our way to the final frontier for the sake of the forms of the Nintendo Switch lifespan or something like that. So I suppose time will tell. And also another thing I want to mention about, and that's what appears to be about the fact that there was going to be, well, recently, during that specific period in mind, that Pokemon Masters EX, or Pokemon Masters, the game itself, on the smartphone, has recently got into the 4th anniversary since in 2019. So, yeah, I guess that's something. And also, not only one, but 2 games have been recently became certain anniversaries during that time. Like, for instance, about the fact that, well, for those of you who lived in North America, happy 15th anniversary of the release of Mario Super Sluggers, which was, you know, still a really great game in my opinion, especially that we've already done that Let's Play in Sensing during the forms of in the beginning portion of July or something like that. If you guys want to check it out, then I'm sure that you probably already noticed that from the start, especially concerning about that particular point where basically that was about the fact that we just love to play Mario Super Sluggers from time to time, especially concerning when it gets to, like, I don't know, summer season or something like that. We always attempt to play some good old Mario Baseball action, which is a shame that we never actually got a new Mario Baseball game so far on the Nintendo Switch, which it gives us some high expectations, but apparently though it doesn't seem like it. So even then though, it's kind of unfortunate though. And also, it's been 1 year ago since Pac-Man World Repack has been first came out, since in 2022, which, as I said before, it's been about a year ago since when that happened, and as a result, that, you know, if you want to check it out, then obviously you can able to look up on our channel and just try to, you know, search for Pac-Man World Repack Let's Play, then by all means you can able to actually look up for yourself or something. So, anywho though, something's worth noting for as well, and that's what appears to be about the fact that, there was actually somewhat of a bit of a sad news to tell you when it comes to the forms of not only 1, but 3 stuff in general. Like, for instance, there's a UK channel called CITV, which is basically a children's program of ITV stuff. And apparently, though, we're getting very close towards the end of the era for the sake of the forms of that particular CITV channel, which as a result, because they now moved on to the forms of a streaming services or anything else to be more specifically for ITVX and stuff like that, so that might be, presumably that might be, seems to be the case or something. So either way though, oh, and another thing as well, and that's what appears to be about the fact that unfortunately though, 2 of those people, one which is involved around WWE wrestler, and especially noticeable for one of those show's hosts, that basically both of those people died recently. Like, for instance, there's a WWE wrestler called Bray Wyatt. He was roughly 36 years old, and because of that though, it was so shocking to able to see him passed away recently, which I know for a fact that because he suffers by the forms of some heart attacks recently, and that is very sad, especially concerning about that particular point that, at one point, that me and Mighty did somehow manage to have a nice chat to each other, you know, like a bros kind of thing, and as a result, whenever we did looked upon the actual TV news broadcast recently, jeez, me and Mighty just felt incredibly shocked whenever we first heard about that particular upsetting news during our specific WWE fans. So, anyway, and in terms of the forms of another person called Bob Barker, who managed able to do one of those, you know, the actual quiz shows during that time, like The Price is Right, for instance. He also passed away, and as a result, he's pretty much 99 years old, and he was so close to able to actually make his way to the 100th anniversary, or to be more specifically, 100th birthday during that time, and that's actually also very shocking as well. So, even though, yeah, it seems that this year's gonna be a little bit, well, all over the place recently, as far as I can remember, as far as trying to say something, I guess. So, anyway, so we need to talk to this particular NPC right there, as we've already did for about a few seconds ago. And this is where we come across into ourselves the Lakitu car kind of thing, which I'll admit though, it does look pretty awesome, especially concerning that maybe in the remake they're able to actually bring him back, especially concerning about that particular point that it makes the actual character pretty interesting to able to see, which I know for a fact that a lot of people keep on asking for, well, the next Super Smash Bros. Stage based around like this, but as a result, maybe it can wait for the next generation of consoles or something, although it's very difficult to tell, especially noticeable because, I mean, after all, we've already got Smash Ultimate since almost 5 years ago, so even then though, and it looks like we've made our way back to Bowser's Keep ever since the beginning portion of the game. Although luckily, as soon as we're able to make our way to Bowser's Keep, we can now able to actually access this place with the actual world map at any point. So there's no need to worry about the forms of trying to able to walk on foot again. So yeah, 20 parts later, presumably speaking, we've managed to make our way back to the beginning portion of the entire journey, except now, everything else has changed around here, especially concerning now we actually got Bowser in our team, and especially noticeable there might be some, again, tougher enemies we can able to battle against, and especially noticeable there are some aggressive bosses, so hopefully we're able to stumble across into one of those specific enemy encounters and all things considered, and we'll bring out the forms of Bowser into our team, just in case we'll do need him for one of those special occasions, for if you can't be bothered able to try to deal with certain enemy encounters or anything else to be more specific, so... But, anyway, oh yeah, I should also mention about this as well, or supposedly enough, the last thing I want to mention during the forms of today's discussion, and that's what appears to be about the fact that there is a game called, let's just say Trip World DX. Yeah, Trip World DX. It was supposedly going to be releasing at some point until next week. So, at least specifically on the Switch. So, yeah, I guess it's that. So, aside from all that stuff though, unfortunately guys, I don't think I can possibly able to actually mention about the forms of any other topics anytime soon. Because aside from the fact that at the very least I did manage to show off some, tons of stuff here and there, apart from one in particular exception to this on the other hand, but that as a result, we'll able to actually get into that in a moment later, so... Anyway, let's get into the forms of some new enemy encounters we can able to encounter. Like, for instance, we stumbled across into not one, but two enemies right now, or technically three, as you probably see. So as a result, that certain enemies there are Terracotta, which is basically it's like the equivalent to the forms of Terra from the likes of the forms of the beginning portion of the game or something like that. So for instance, with the forms of Terracotta does have 180 HP, and you drop about no coins, but if you manage to defeat them, then obviously it gives you 25 experience points. And there's also another enemy, as we currently fighting against right now, which appears to be known as Forkies. So Forkies does have 350 HP, and it gives you 7 coins if you defeat him, and on top of that, it gives you 32 experience points. So that seems really heck of a lot, especially concerning about that particular point that at this point in time, we'll definitely go ahead and try our best if we're able to grind as many of those experience points as much as we can towards the end game, basically. Although, relatively speaking, I was about the fact that I'm pretty certain about the fact that, well, as far as at this point in time, that when it comes to Bowser's Keep, not only does it change significantly, but also about the fact that we can now able to actually get experience points after defeating certain enemy encounters in Bowser's Keep, whilst before, like since the beginning portion of the game, that we haven't exactly got any of those experience points at all because of the forms of the tutorial segment. So even then no, because chances are though is about the fact that, well, you probably get the idea. In addition to that though is about the fact that I'm pretty sure that Bowser's Keep is going to get a lot more lengthier than the forms of how it does it since the beginning portion of the game as well. So, relatively speaking though, that maybe seems the case. So even then no. So for the most part it looks like we're about to be able to keep on fighting against some more enemies for the time being. Just in case we can able to actually just to like, you know, Oh, I did not notice that. If you somehow manage to let Bowser join in your party, basically what happens is that sometimes Bowser will scare off certain enemies. So, yeah, it's gonna be one of those rare coincidences of how the fact that every once in a while that you might not get that much experience points in addition to that. So that's going to be one of those kind of annoying moments here and there, but regardless of such though, it does help you out for a bit, especially concerning that we've almost nearly at the end of the game, so everything else though will be pretty much expected at that point, so... And as far as I'm aware about the fact that we can now able to stumble across into two other enemies, as you can see. So for instance, we got ourselves the forms of Goomba, which is basically it's almost like a green counterpart of regular Goombas or anything else to be more specific, despite the fact that much like the other enemies that we've already faced up against, if you equip Bowser in your party, they'll easily get scared off. So Anywho though, yeah, for Goo Goombas right there, despite the fact that we somehow managed to scare them off, Goo Goombas does have 132 HP, and it gives you 1 coin if you defeat them, and on top of that you get 15 experience points. And there's also the forms of Star Crusher, or Star Cruster. Star Cruster does have 72 HP, which is quite lesser amount. And on top of that, it gives you 30 coins if you defeat him. And finally, it gives you 36 experience points. So, yeah, I guess that's that. But there's going to be some more enemy encounters throughout, especially noticeable that we might able to actually bump into that familiar, the ending portion, or should I say, the chandelier part, since the beginning portion of the game. But then again though, things have changed quite significantly throughout, especially concerning about that particular point after experiencing, oh, now we've actually got some donut lift platforms as you can see on screen. So now we need to do some isometric platforming right there, and also the chandelier part is no longer there in that particular room right there. So, speaking of which though, here are some more enemies right here, despite the fact that they are both got scared, thanks to Bowser in some cases though. So, we have ourselves the forms of Mela Koopa. Mela Koopa does have 95 HP, and it gives you 3 coins if you defeat them, and on top of that you get 23 experience points. And also, we stumbled across into yet another enemy as we're currently dealing with right now. That's what appears to be known as Tapu Koopa. Tapu Koopa does have 500 HP, and in addition to that, it gives you 11 coins, and finally, it gives you 40 experience points, if I'm assuming so anyway. So, and it looks like we've now reached to level 20 for Geno, so everything else should be good to go for the most part. So, I was expecting about the fact that we can able to actually just to say this right now, that we've almost done with the forms of every single enemy encounters throughout the majority of the game so far, which I'm actually kind of impressed with myself, especially concerning after quite a few delays in between the forms of optional fights, and especially noticeable with the forms of some optional enemy encounters to able to encounter. But aside from all that stuff though, at the very least I'm doing quite well recently. So even then though, despite with the forms of some of those distractions on the forms of some news that's been happening, and on top of that though, I'm just getting the forms of a lot of hype about the forms of how you know what I'm saying about the fact that how September is going to rolls out to be. Well, I was expecting about the fact that possibly during at some point until on the forms of next weekend, that I'm obviously going to be mentioning something related to Mario Kart Tour for the likes of the forms of next weekend or something like that. So, anyways though, so it looks like we actually gonna be able to bump into the exactly same enemies as we've already fought against, despite the fact that I just never get a chance to able to actually fight against with the forms of Mela Koopas right there, just because obviously, like I said before, if you do manage to able to let Bowser join in the party, obviously all those enemies will get scared. So there we go, that pretty much takes care of those. So it might take a bit of while to able to go from one room to the other, because of the forms of a massive amount of enemy encounters to be able to actually just somehow manage to try to deal with. So anyway, I suppose I should probably also mention about this as well, is about the fact that recently, that Capcom 74, he's now finally coming back onto the Fire Red version of, you know, Pokemon Generation 1 Remake, especially concerning about the particular technical issues he's been having for the past few days or so, but at the very least though, he somehow managed to finally go back on track for the likes of, you know, Pokemon Fire Red version. So even then though, yeah, that might be saying something. So, and it looks like at this point in time is that when it comes to the forms of those experience points that we keep on getting, obviously we do need to able to get the ridiculous amount of those experience points later down the road. Specifically, whenever you're trying to make your way to level 21 or level 22, but then again though, I was originally trying to able to get myself the special accessory, but I think I should probably save that particular moment once we're completely done with the forms of, for the most part, the majority of the forms of Bowser's Keep from now on, because it's especially noticeable at that specific point that, at the very least, if we do manage to able to tackle through one last extra bit before we end off the game for reals. And basically though, it's about the fact that at the very least we can able to actually go back on track for a moment thanks to the Forms of the World map screen. So anyways though, so that pretty much takes care of those enemies right here. And I apologize for that particular lighting is a bit kind of dark around here, but that's just because about the fact that every once in a while we're now able to actually come across into certain rooms is actually going to get a little bit difficult, especially mainly for the forms of that particular, you know what I'm saying, with dark rooms and all that stuff, so everything else will be come to its fruition, so... Now, as far as I'm aware, is about the fact that, well, relatively speaking, is about the fact that we were expecting that we were able to actually go back onto Sonic Frontiers at some point during the forms of it next week or so, but like we've already established that earlier, that we'll also have to be able to wait for that at some point in possibly on the 4th of September. That might be the best option, mainly because we definitely need to get a massive comeback for the likes of going back into Sonic Frontiers before we dive right into the last big thing before we move on to the next couple of Let's Plays up ahead. But then again though, we'll save that particular topic for later, so either way though. Alright, so nicely done for these enemies that we somehow dished out of, so... And of course we actually come across into those guys again, so... But thankfully we can able to actually easily end off of this particular battle sequence right there, thanks to Bowser's scaring kind of thing, syndrome, so... But, yeah, there's not much else you can talk about. I would have liked able to explain something else for that matter, but I think it's probably best for me to able to mention some more stuff. Eventually at some point, and during the forms of in tomorrow's sake, that like I said before is about the fact that the uploading schedules at this point in time is about to get changed again. Like for instance, oh, we got ourselves Croco right here. Okay, I almost assume about the fact that you're trying to attack us again, since in during the forms of in the mines, or potentially speaking with Bandit's Way, but no, instead he's actually going to be offering us a bit of a shopping department. So yeah, that's actually pretty interesting, all things considered, especially concerning about the particular point that obviously you can able to actually sell some items or buy some items and sell weapons, but I usually sell certain items just in case for the item storage. So either way, so we made our way to the safe spot right here, so now we can able to continue, and what's this? We actually stumbled across into ourselves not one, but 6 stores we need to go through. So, for instance, I believe they've shown us a quick preview of certain doors does manage to contain a battle rooms, and also the action platforming obstacles, and finally the puzzle challenges. So, I suppose no matter what though, we'll probably go ahead and choose what number we want to go for. So, I think the game tells us that we need to complete 4 out of 6 door challenges. So, now I'm pretty sure I'm also able to go for the reverse order. Well, I was originally trying to go into the forms of starting from 1 all the way up to 6, but I feel like I'm about to do the reverse order. So let's begin with the forms of door number 6, which pretty much leads us to the puzzle challenge. So, I believe that when it comes to every single doors in mind, depending on what file selections you're going to be selecting through, I'm pretty sure they're all randomized every time whenever you first time experiencing, you know, Bowser's Keep with the forms of those 6 doors. So something tells me about the fact that we need to able to be playing 21, as far as I'm concerned, with heavily utilizing the forms of that particular question mark treasure chest. So let's see if we can able to actually get this a lucky moment right there. So, okay, how do I... Okay. Oh, wow. I managed to do this on the first try. That's actually pretty swell. And I apologize for that particular awkward commentary for this point, guys, because I almost for some reason just felt a little bit too hungry at the moment, but hopefully by that time, once I'm able to get to a certain point, then obviously I'm also able to take a break for this game for a while, because obviously I just want to get Donkey Kong Country on the Game Boy Advance to be concluded. So either way though, let's just go ahead and... Oh, wait a minute. This does look familiar to me, because it does kind of remind me like I was experiencing the, you know, trying to able to unlock the final egg level in Sonic Adventure when it comes to not only for Sonic, but also with Amy as well. And that, as a result, is the forms of trying to solve this particular Switch puzzle. So, but if you mess up quite a few times, then I don't suppose there's no turning back for it. Or perhaps even maybe just keep trying. So, either way though, thankfully I did somehow manage to memorize the pattern here. So, but if you think we've done here, well, there's actually one more puzzle onto this particular challenge room. And turns out we need to knock all of those black balls. So, I would say this one is the hardest of the bunch. So, I'm also trying my best if I was going to able to, well, try to solve this problem. So, at least potentially speaking though, if I dare come across into the forms of one of those doors contains endless amount of enemy encounters, then I should be alright. But as far as platforming challenges, as far as I'm concerned, oh my god, that's when the platforming segments gets a lot more difficult towards the end game. So, I need to put up with this muscle memory to able to figure this out. Although sometimes it might take a bit while to able to figure it out sometimes. If for those of you who have a first time experiencing this, basically, so. But, yeah, for the most part, though, it's about the fact that, like I said before, we do need to complete 4 doors before you're able to progress. Although, you can able to actually go back if you wanted to able to actually tackle through the other 2 remaining doors. But I think it's probably best if we're able to save those last 2 doors for later. Because obviously, I think something tells me that once we complete 4 of those door challenges, I'm presuming so anyway, that we'll force able to go into a next boss battle, or just potentially speaking, not only the next boss battle, but also with another one as well. But that'll be, I'll save that particular topic at some point during the, like I said before, until next weekend, so. Sorry, I was have to able to concentrate on this particular puzzle right there, because if I do mess up at one point, then obviously I'll have to able to just restart the whole entire puzzle again, so. And that's it. That was the entire puzzle, so. Yeah, again, it does require me a lot of concentration here, but regardless of such though, we did somehow complete one of those doors, so yeah, that should be alright. So now we can able to move on to the next door, which as you can tell, we now ended up in door number 5, at least if I was assuming so anyway. And this pretty much leads us to the battle course. At least as far as I'm concerned, it's basically we have to encounter so many enemies that we have to deal with all that stuff though, which I'm pretty sure that once you're able to get the hang of it though, especially noticeable concerning that we've already faced off the forms of certain enemies from before, then obviously we pretty much know exactly what to expect, so. But, anyway, oh yeah, I should also mention about this as well, and that's what appears to be about the fact that recently I actually got to the point about the fact that I managed able to start watching the next series of mine, and that's what appears to be by the forms of Torchwood, which, for those of you unaware, for that particular series, all things considered, Torchwood is basically like an adult version of Doctor Who, at least as far as I'm concerned. Like, obviously much like the forms of Sarah Jane Adventures and Doctor Who, speaking of which, that obviously is being created by the same guy by the forms of Russell T. Davies. So, yeah, I can see that particular strong resemblance for that strong connection with that particular sci-fi, aliens and all that stuff, or monsters potentially, for the likes of that particular massive connection between Doctor Who, the Sarah Jane Adventures, and Torchwood. So, I thought it was quite interesting whenever I did manage to able to, well, so far that I've recently watched, let's just say 8 episodes, to be more specifically, because I know for a fact that much like the Sarah Jane Adventures, it doesn't seem to able to have that many episodes on here, but either way though, that was surely I guess, so. But so far, I'm actually really enjoyed that particular series so far, despite it gets a bit, I'm not gonna lie, gruesome and dark at the same time for certain episodes, specifically the episode called let's just say, I don't know what the episode is called now, because I know it's been about quite a few hours ago since I actually have last watched that particular series on BBC One or just potentially BBC iPlayer to me though, but that's just mainly because I somehow got distracted by the forms of, you know what I'm saying, with the forms of certain enemy descriptions I have to able to look up upon for the sake of the forms of the later encounters, all things considered, so... But, yeah, not much else to talk about. I mean, sure, I would have liked able to explain some more details on something else entirely, but again, we'll have to mention more about other topics and during at some point, until the tomorrow's Donkey Kong Country on the Game Boy Advance, presumably speaking. So, because the reason why I say that is because, well, eventually at some point, it wasn't until, like, possibly and during the forms of it next week, that I'm focusing on Donkey Kong Country for the likes of the forms of the Game Boy Advance version on the forms of not only on Monday, but also on Wednesday and Friday essentially as well. So we can able to, you know, finish up with that particular playthrough, all things considered, so... And by that time and during that, at some form or another, once we finish up with the forms of Donkey Kong Country on the Game Boy Advance, exponentially speaking though until next year, we're able to actually tackle for Donkey Kong Country 2 on the Game Boy Advance to mark the 20th anniversary of that version's release, and... I don't know if I can able to actually do Donkey Kong Country on the Game Boy Color anytime soon, because obviously that particular version is rather notorious for most gamers out there, especially concerning that compared to the forms of the good old Super Nintendo version, including the pretty underrated Game Boy Advance version in my opinion, that it does seem to able to have some bit of, well, let's just say questionable design choices on the Game Boy Color version, which despite with the forms of some screen crunch from time to time, but still, I can't really doubt it for the sake of time, so... Now, I'm pretty sure at this point in time, with the forms of the battle rooms, as far as this is concerned, I'm pretty sure we're going to be faced up against with those previous enemies sent in the previous areas throughout the entire journey so far, so that does seem pretty interesting to say the least. Mind you, despite the fact that we're probably not going to get that much experience points for this point, so I'm pretty sure that might be seems to be a little bit more of a doubtful moments worth noting for, so... Now, I think something tells me with that particular red Magic Koopa, that could be something related to for later, especially concerning about that particular point that, and I'm pretty sure about the fact that we're now onto the halfway point journey forms of that particular you know, Bowser's Keep before we move on to the final bit of the entire adventure. So, even though, as far as the true final area as far as I'm concerned, we'll save that until for later, because obviously we need to able to go after the last extra thing before we hit on to that particular things worth noting for, so... Yeah, I guess it's that. So, at least, luckily for me, I keep on getting some very, very good lucky moments with Yoshi's egg in mind, especially for all that particular... You know what I'm saying, it always picks on middle rather than left and right. I mean, sure, it requires a bit of concentration if you do manage to able to get Yoshi in that particular egg, so... I'm pretty sure after what I've done with this particular battle, I think I should probably be able to end off for that particular point, because I'm not exactly sure if I was gonna able to complete this particular battle course for the sake of time, but definitely in the next video for sure. So with that being said, I think we should probably end things off this point right here. So join me next time for more Let's Play of Super Mario RPG, Legend of the Seven Stars, and that's where we'll be able to actually continue exploring through Bowser's Keep by going through some more doors and exponentially end off with this particular Bowser's Keep. So I'll see you guys until next weekend. Later, fellas.